well, my name is Nicole Smith, and you probably noticed from the invite or however you heard about the class, I'm a certified holistic health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition based out of New York City. I've been doing that for a little over a year now. It really started with my own passion for kind of figuring out what was wrong with me, because I was going through a phase in my life that had actually been kind of a long phase where I just could not understand why I loved food and why it was doing such awful things to my body. So, every time I ate, I would just feel lethargic, I would get bloated, I just wasn't feeling well. And leading up to my wedding and on my honeymoon, every meal I ate made me sick. And every doctor I had gone to, they would, it's IBS, it's this, it's that, let's put you on medicine. But nobody could really tell me what it was. And so I started to kind of do my own research, enrolled myself into the program, and really started with putting myself on an elimination diet, kind of eliminating certain foods, figuring out what was triggering certain symptoms, and then slowly reintroducing foods again. At the time, I thought I was a healthy eater because I cooked at home. So I thought, well, I'm not eating fast food every day, so clearly I must be healthy. My husband politely reminds me all the time that, just because you're cooking a lean cuisine at home doesn't mean that you're eating something healthy. So, so when I really started to focus more on whole foods and seasonal foods and kind of helping myself to get back in balance, I found a new passion. And so I started my own company. I still work full-time, but I have a company on the side, and I work with people either individually or in group settings, do cooking classes, demonstrations out of their home, talk to a lot of PTO groups, things like that, parents. My primary focus is on the family. I truly believe that starting young and helping children to learn how to appreciate food and make good choices about what they're putting into their bodies goes a long way and stays with them. So thank you to Best Health Option for having me here today. And hopefully, not only will you learn some fun things today, but you'll get to eat some good food too. So really the purpose of today's class is to focus on seasonal eating. So if you just recently obviously came in from outside, it's disgusting outside. It is windy, it's cold, it's gloomy, it's gross, and here in Wisconsin that tends to do a whole lot to our mental well-being as well as our physical well-being. So when we talk about seasonal eating, it's different depending on where we live, obviously. So here in the colder climates, while we have access to certain foods year-round, it wouldn't necessarily sustain us year-round. So eating tropical fruits like papayas and pineapples and things like that aren't going to help us get through the cold winters. Just like if you're living in Hawaii, you're not going to sustain yourself off of soups and stews and things like that all year round. So clearly, our bodies adapt to the temperature changes, and we need the foods that correspond with those temperatures. Foods have a reason for the seasons that they're in. In your packets, there is I think it's the second handout, there is a seasonal produce kind of calendar for Wisconsin, which helps you to understand what's in season at what different times. And if you think about the life of specific food, there really isn't one food that grows year-round. Obviously, we have methods now that help us to grow food year-round, but every food has a growth cycle, and the closer we stick to that cycle, the more in balance we are. As I mentioned before, technology and transportation make it easy for us to get foods out of season, but we find that they tend to cost more. So, when I'm working with people, one of the main things that I try and help them focus on is when you start to make a change over to healthier eating, I hear a lot of complaints of, well, healthy eating costs more money. I would challenge people by asking how much they're spending at Starbucks every week or, things like that. But if you're buying in season, you're going to have a lot more, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. So, if you look at strawberries are in season in Wisconsin a very, very short amount of time, which is why they cost $6.99 a package, right now, versus the $2.99 or $3.99 that you'll pay in the summertime for them. So, I tell people a lot, if you are somebody who likes certain foods year-round, if you belong to a CSA or if you go to a farmer's market, you can easily freeze Canning sometimes intimidates people, but freezing food, greens, fruits. I freeze a lot of rhubarb and different berries and things like that, or even just buying frozen fruits and veggies at the grocery store over the fresh can be a cost saver for you. So keep that in mind as you make some of those changes to your own diets. So we're gonna make or some things are already kind of made, but we're going to talk about 3 different things today. And the first one is actually not a meal, it's a beverage. Stocks, broths, things like that, when you think about the winter months, these are the types of things that we use a lot. But so often people take the bones from the meat that they eat or the carcass from the chicken and they throw it away. And it's such a waste because there's so many vital trace minerals and nutrients in those bones that we can benefit from. So I made bone broth last night, literally cooked all night, threw it into my crock pot. You can either ask your butcher for soup bones. You can save the bones that you have. I would just get a baggie, and as you eat certain things, stick them in the freezer, and when you have a decent amount, stick them in your crock pot. I usually just throw in 4 to 5 carrots or so, a couple ribs of celery, some chopped up onions, a couple cloves of garlic. You can throw in greens, parsley, anything that you want in there. I don't add salt and pepper or any other seasoning because if I am going to use it for a soup or a stock or a stew, I'm going to season along the way, so I don't want to over season it. And if I'm drinking it, which is usually what I do, especially in the winter months, I'll fill these into mason jars, just kind of single serving mason jars, and stick them in the fridge. They're really easy to reheat, but I don't want to eat, or I don't want to drink anything too salty or whatever, so I don't season mine. A splash of vinegar, and then water to the top. And all of the recipes are in your packets for everything that we're doing here today.
Could you use multiple different, like a ham bone, a turkey
Absolutely.
bone, it doesn't matter what kind? Because I feel like grandparents used to do that an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my grandma does it all the time.
My grandpa, and my husband and I buy our meat in bulk, and so every time I get ham hocks, I just give them to my grandpa. He likes to make like split pea soup and like things like that with all of his, with all the bones. But bone broth is extremely important for your digestive health. Really helps to strengthen the GI tract. And like I mentioned, animal bones and the marrow have so many vital nutrients: magnesium, calcium, other trace minerals that are really brought out by the broth, and it's just a great way to help keep yourself healthy throughout flu season especially. And like I said, if you're not somebody who's like, I don't really just want to drink it, you can easily then just use it for your soups and stews and get the same benefits from it. But that is bone broth. I would highly suggest, if you know, it's so easy. Literally threw everything in my crock pot, turned it on low, cooked it overnight. It was like 10 to 12 hours. Took everything out this morning. You can serve it up and so I drink about a cup a day. And like I said, I mean, you can add a little, if you're somebody who would prefer a little bit more seasoning. It is a little bit bland. My husband's always like, oh, there's no flavor to it. But like I said, if you are cooking with it, you're going to be adding flavor along the way. And like, I prefer my teas I don't like honey or, any of those things in my tea. So I like, just kind of the bland, a little bit less seasoning in it, but you can certainly do that. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to make is a salad. And we're talking about seasonal eating, so salads might seem a little strange to you that we're going to make a salad in the winter. And while lettuces and certain greens are not necessarily seasonal here in Wisconsin, if we relied on everything that was seasonal here in Wisconsin, clearly we would have very limited. So we have places like Growing Power and other urban farms and farmers around the area that have a lot of greenhouses. They're growing these things year round. Again, this time of year, it's extremely important to still get your dark leafy greens and vital nutrients that come from those. So this isn't necessarily, I like to think of this as more of a winter salad. It's a little heartier, still going to be lighter than a soup or a stew or something, meat and potatoes-ish, that you would normally maybe think of in the winter, but it is a little bit heartier of a salad. I like to call this my brain food salad because, again, in the wintertime, this is when our mental well-being, I feel like, is tested to the limit. And so being able to kind of keep things going and keep your brain functioning properly really does have huge benefits. So we're starting with kale, and what I did was, for those of you who know what kale looks like, it's a pretty tough leaf, and it's kind of fibrous. It's not really the easiest to eat, especially in a salad. So I like to slice it really thin and massage it with some olive oil. That'll help to kind of loosen up the fibers. It'll be easier to chew, easier to digest. So every component of this salad, like I mentioned before, has great benefits for brain health. So your dark leafy greens actually have more nutrients per calorie than any other food. So they're a great way, to get in a lot of what you need, especially at this cold and flu season. The extra virgin olive oil that I use is a healthy fat, anti-inflammatory. Let's see. So I'm not going to put this in just yet and I'm going to keep it covered because fish kind of smells. And if you don't like fish, we'll add this at the end, for those of you that like it. But salmon is a great oily fish full of omega-3s. Your brain is, mostly made of fat, loves fat. So salmon is a huge component to the salad and extremely important throughout the winter months. If you're not a fish eater, you could easily add beans. Beans are great food. They release glucose slowly, which the brain likes. So that's always great. And obviously, beans offer lots of fiber. I do have hard-boiled eggs, and I know that Chinese aren't big into dairy, but at this time of year, vitamin D is huge, and most of us, I'd say majority of us, are deficient in it. There are very few foods that have vitamin D in them. Egg yolks, some mushrooms, some fish, some oily fish, and so I do add hard-boiled eggs to the salad for that reason. And then I've got avocado, which is a good source of vitamin E, another healthy fat. Antioxidants, folate is anti-inflammatory. And then walnuts. So walnuts are the nut that everybody says kind of looks like your brain. And nuts in general, if you didn't like walnuts, you could add pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds or almonds, cashews, something else. But nuts have a full spectrum of minerals. Decrease inflammation, help lower cholesterol, so great all around. So we're going to kind of dish up, make our salad here. Any questions at this point as it relates to anything we're making, anything we're talking about? Are these foods that you would normally find yourself comfortable cooking with?
Yeah.
Do you feel like...
Kale is out of I'm not a big kale person. Yeah.
Because you
She's gonna
don't...
give me some, but we never got a chance to get up there.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Because you're not entirely sure kind of what to do with it.
Because it's tough. Yes, because it is tough, and so I've never really known how to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is tough, and it is, like I said, it's kind of one of those foods that, if you're not cooking it, eating it raw is definitely going to be a little bit more difficult. And most people don't like that. I know Betsy, you just made kale chips recently.
Yes.
I was saying, kale's one of those things. I don't like kale chips. I love kale, but I've never been able to just make them where I'm like, yeah, these taste good. I don't know. But I think that, certainly there are different ways. I do like to saute it with a little garlic and, butter and top it. I like to saute it up with other veggies, put it in my eggs in the morning or something like that.
What about baby kale?
Baby kale would be a little bit less tough and easier to use and digest. All right. Does anyone have an aversion to salmon? I can leave it out, or I can put it in separately if you want.
I like salmon.
I feel like I should just look at you.
I love salmon. I love salmon.
Salmon is a very warming fish,
It
so it's a good winter fish to have, and it's bold and it's heavy, and again, it will help root you.
I also, one of the things that I like to add to the salad, but I'm not adding it here because some people are a little, I like to add raw garlic, another very warming food, but sometimes it can be a little too powerful. I mean, I'm the type of person, I once made a salad with a lot of garlic. And my husband was like, I can't eat this. Whereas I was like, oh, I love it. And then you could like smell it on me forever.
Comes through the pores.
Another thing, so dressings. I don't buy store-bought dressings anymore. They're full of sugar, full of gross stuff. I'm not saying that you can't find healthy versions of dressing, but it's so much easier to just make it home. Our go-to, honestly, is just extra virgin olive oil, a little balsamic, ground pepper over your salad. But you can mix it up. You really just need a fat, an acid, whether that's lemon or lime juice, orange juice, any type of vinegar, apple cider vinegar, champagne vinegar, red wine vinegar, balsamic vinegar. There's a number of ways that you can play around with dressings. So for this one, I'm just using some extra virgin olive oil, champagne vinegar. I'm going to add a little bit of stone ground mustard. This version has some turmeric in it, which is also a very good spice. A little salt and pepper.
I've also actually heard that turmeric is, and maybe you guys can tell me, but they say that it's really good against cancers, and that's why women in other countries have lower rates of breast cancer.
Well, it's an excellent anti-inflammatory.
Okay. I remember hearing that and thinking, wow.
Yeah, turmeric is one of those kind of superfood spices. It's got lots of benefits, and I think it's underutilized in the U.S.
And you don't need that much of it.
No, you don't at all. So we'll toss this up. You could add, I mean, really, you know, it's your salad. You could add, you know, even if they weren't necessarily seasonal, you could add tomatoes or any other veggie that you liked to the salad. So the really kind of the main attraction when it comes to seasonal vegetables, and that is root vegetables. During the winter, root vegetables are, I feel like, even though they are in season, they're probably the most overlooked things at the grocery store. People walk by them. I don't know if it's because they kind of look funky or people are intimidated by them. They're not entirely sure how to use them, but it's definitely food that is overlooked, and food that shouldn't be overlooked, because especially, at this time of year, it's extremely important. Root vegetables are grounding. They help us to, that's fine. They help us to, you know, really kind of stay in balance, stay grounded. Absolutely delicious. And so today, rather than making a traditional stir fry with what you would probably think of, broccoli, snap peas, some peppers, things like that, we're going to make a root vegetable stir fry. So before we get started, you mentioned parsnips, so you love parsnips. Parsnips, if you've never had them, obviously look like a carrot. They taste like a carrot, very sweet. Does anybody know what this is?
My first guess was an onion, and then I said, nope, not an onion.
It is a turnip. It's a turnip. So these can be eaten raw or cooked. Very mild taste to them. They're they hold a lot of moisture, but excellent, like I said, raw if you wanted something crunchy in salads. Obviously, we're going to cook them today. How about this guy? Rutabaga. Betsy, you are on fire today. This is awesome.
I've never used any of them, but.
All right. Well, we're going to use them today. This is a rutabaga. I only had one, so I didn't get to prep this one. I'm going to have to do it here, and it's probably not going to be the easiest thing to do because it's a really tough, fibrous vegetable. I am not a fan of eating this raw. I would cook it like we're going to do today. But it kind of, to me, has the consistency of a potato. And you can easily, I mean, with any of these vegetables, they would be delicious roasted. Roasted with a little balsamic and garlic, something like that. We're going to obviously pan fry them today or stir fry them. But there's a number of ways that you can eat root vegetables. So I would encourage you, after you leave here today, to find one root vegetable that you're not going to be afraid of and that you're going to experiment with. If anything, just to say you did. So I'm going to use a mandolin. You don't have to use, I mean, I'm just doing this because I'm going to cut them into matchsticks. It'll be easier to with a stir fry, you obviously want to have everything kind of around the same size so that everything cooks evenly because you're really not cooking very long. But we've got onions. I've got the cover on the onions because they were really smelly when we took them out. So they'll be better once we start cooking them. Not as strong and pungent. But we've got our parsnips. We've also got some carrots, turnips. I did end up, I'm going to throw in some red bell pepper because even though it's not seasonal, I love it and it just adds a really good flavor to the stir fry. Some mushrooms, some purple cabbage, and then obviously the rutabaga. And the fat I'm going to use to kind of get this all going is a coconut oil. You could use other oils if you wanted. Coconut oil, especially if you're using like a wok or something like that, is really good for high heat. It is a little higher in saturated fat, which the verdict is out on fats. People have all different opinions on fats, healthy fats, and what they really do. So, but in moderation, you can easily. We're only going to use about a tablespoon, just to kind of get things going. And this is honestly one of those dinners that will take, 20 minutes at home, if that, to make. So very simple, not too time consuming. Obviously you've got some prep to do with, kind of slicing and dicing. But I encourage people to do that right when you get home from the grocery store, just kind of cut it up. And again, you don't have to use all of these vegetables. You can certainly, that's the nice thing about stir fries is that they're very versatile. So you can really add, if you have something that's about to go bad in your fridge, throw it in there, who cares? It's an easy way to use up food. Any questions on the root vegetables? Have you, I know you said you like parsnips, so I'm assuming you've cooked with them?
Yeah,
Okay.
I usually roast them or I put them in stews lately just because I like them more than potatoes.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've got a really nice sweet taste. I don't know if you can smell it, but even just standing up here, I can smell the sweetness of them. So what did you guys think of the salad?
Really good.
Did you like the salad? Was it easier to chew and did you feel, okay.
And the kale didn't have that bitter bite to it that it usually. Like,
It's amazing how, whether, sauteing it or just kind of releasing some of those fibers, can make it that much, like a different, vegetable.